to another interesting episode on the BizBlend podcast with your host, Sana. Now, you all know on BizBlend, business meets mindset, hustle meets heart, and also strategy and soul. Now, today's episode is about something that every entrepreneur faces, whether they admit it or not. Personally, I've faced this as well: fear. And it's not just the fear of failure, it's the fear of success, it's the fear of being seen, and the fear of making the wrong move, or maybe putting up a post on their online and then thinking that, oh my goodness, what exactly did I write? And Tracy, this especially is so relevant for me because I'm a full-time introvert. Big time introvert. I fear posting things online. I fear expressing my opinion because I kind of fear of being seen. So, I mean, this is so much going to be relevant for me and all the young introverts out there, especially. But yes, so to all the listeners, you know that the monster under bed that keeps us stuck, procrastinating, or playing small. It is that monster. But what if we could face that monster and instead of slaying it, we learned how to tame it? And joining me today is Tracey Sundkvist. She's a powerhouse growth coach who has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs break through their fears to build profitable, sustainable businesses. Now, Tracy blends psychology, stratified systems theory, and then neuroscience backed coaching to help business owners, entrepreneurs become the most powerful version of themselves. Now, we are going to explore how understanding fear, even befriending it, can supercharge your confidence. It can sharpen your decision making and then unlock the next level of your business growth. So, with that, Tracy, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you on BizBlend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sana. I'm delighted to be here.
Okay. So, Tracy, I really love this metaphor of monster under the bed. It kind of reminds me, when I was just reading through the intro, it's like instead of slaying it, how we can tame it or befriend with it. So it reminds me of that movie Babadook, where the mother, she kinds of first has the fear with the monster under the bed, but then she keeps it in her house. She befriends it, then only she's able to win over that monster. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's just a pop culture talk. But anyway,
Yeah.
coming to the business, what's one of the most common monsters you see entrepreneurs facing, and why do you think those fears show up in business?
When it comes to fear, there's two fears that probably every single business owner faces. If I were to say which one is more common, usually it's a fear that's based on what's going to happen in future. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to land this client. I'm going to lose out on money. It's more about a prediction about something negative. But but even those kind of fears are really rooted in self confidence. So yeah, for me, no matter, regardless of how the fear is starting, or whether it's coming from a past experience or whether it's coming from anxiety created about anticipating a future, what it does is it really bleaches all the color out of the world for that person, right? It takes the joy of what they're doing out of it. And it's not just about not feeling great. It's when you're in a fearful situation, you aren't able to give your best. And that's why it's so important for specifically entrepreneurs to understand and to learn, how can I face this thing with courage, because it never goes away. You only learn to tame it.
Mm, that's powerful. That's powerful. And I um it's definitely the fear of unknown or the unpredictable future, and then the fear of visibility or fear of charging what we are worth of. And it's really fascinating how uh, those internal narratives, they sneak into business decisions.
You're so right. They're very sneaky, which is why I like to think of them as monsters under the bed because you gave such a beautiful example, undercharging. So not charging what we're worth because we're afraid that people are just going to, not buy. And that is a consequence of a hidden fear. It's not something we say to ourselves, "Oh, I'm scared they're not gonna buy, so I better, drop my prices." It's something that you do without even thinking. And it's so important for you to understand when those kind of decisions are being taken from a fear place rather than from a growth and a healthy place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Tracy, you teach that fear isn't something to eliminate, but it is something we can work with. Uh, I mean, of course, it's easier said than done. So, can you walk us through what taming the monster actually looks like in the practical terms?
Absolutely. When it comes to fear, we need fear. Fear it's a response to perceived danger. So fear is supposed to keep us safe. The problem is we're bombarded by negative information, and with the way that things are going, there's a lot of really scary things, like real scary things, not imagined, actual. And what
Mm,
this does is it can actually wire us to be in a constant state of fear, which is very, very destructive. So, for anybody who experiences fear and understands that they're operating from a fear based, it's going to be
mm,
important to understand. Okay, so I'm feeling this. There's I think two big ways to get started, and Brene Brown speaks about this beautifully.
mm,
She says
mm,
the first one is to focus on gratitude. So when you're feeling kind of overwhelmed or you feeling afraid or you feeling kind of nervous about something, you can focus on things that you are grateful for, things that you value, things that you appreciate. Because you can't
mm,
be afraid and in a state of gratitude at the same time, right? So fully develop, fully be in that state of appreciation. The
mm,
other thing is to develop your curiosity. When you start feeling those things, it's about kind of saying to yourself, that's interesting. What is this voice trying to protect me from? Right. So rather than just buying into it and your behavior kind of aligning with what that internal narrative is saying, it's to flip it into a question. Okay, what
mm,
is this? So for you, it might be, if you're going to put a post out there and people aren't going to like it, and that's what the voice is saying. You could frame it like, that's very interesting. What would happen if nobody liked it? What harm is that going to do? And just follow that line of questioning. I think
yeah,
another very powerful thing that you can do, and this is a hard one, is to
mm,
cultivate courage. Right? It's to build up your courage bones. And what that means
mm,
is go outside of your comfort zone. So take up a sport, start a support group, learn a new skill, join a group like Toastmasters, but do something outside of the normal things that you do so that you build up that tolerance and you can start telling yourself, I can handle it. It doesn't matter what happens, I can handle it because look at all these things that I've done. I think there's two more that I want to mention. The one is reframing the story. So, Sona, you also said that you are an introvert and that
yeah,
this is something that's very big for yourself. But
yes,
sometimes we need to challenge that. So I was incredibly introverted when I was growing up. But because of the career that I went into, introverted and my identity, those two things didn't go anymore. I didn't feel that those two things fit. So I had to challenge myself to say, well, do you know what? I don't have to be an introvert. That doesn't have to be my story. I can be confident. So, do you know what? I can be an ambivert. I can be extroverted when I need to be, and I can be introverted when I'm, just by myself. So reframe what you're saying. Make yourself the hero of your story and don't let that little voice knock you down. right? Those positive affirmations are so incredibly powerful. I actually have a lot of entrepreneurs who say when they were going through the darkest days of trying to get their business up and running, what they would say, they would repeat. I mean, I had one entrepreneur who would go stand in front of the mirror and just say, I'm a machine, I'm a machine. And you know what? He showed up like that. And then just the last one, and this is quite a fun one, is to try and exaggerate the fear. So if you have a fear of public speaking or if you have a fear of going to a client meeting, try and
Mhm.
see yourself as a cartoon. So make yourself a little cartoon character and turn it into something funny because we need to take the sting out of feeling that fear, right? It's okay to be afraid. It's normal. It's absolutely normal. What we don't want is for it to impact our behavior to the point where it starts affecting our results. And a good way to get it out is to try to see the funny side, try to see the humor in it.
That so connects with me, both the things. So, I was just, a few days back, I connected with a good friend of mine. And, so since I'm an introvert, so I have a very restricted friend circle. And this is not only in my adulthood, but right from my childhood as well. I was never a kid who had a lot of friends, but very few, two or three maybe. So I was just reconnecting with that friend, and I kind of shared my life experiences with him. So he just shared me, you are not introvert, you're ambivert.
Mhm,
So then I had to kind of Google it, because I'll be very honest, listening. Um, until the moment he said that word, I was not aware of it. I was aware I'm an introvert. So that was a huge realization for me, that okay, although I'm an introvert, but there are times when I can be really expressive. And also I can be really self-deprecating as well.
mhm,
Okay, really be, laughing at, okay, I made that stupid decision a few years back and I had to like suffer. But okay, I went through it. I kind of went through those turbulent times, and here I am. I mean, it's not like I'm sympathizing, or I'm just feeling good in whatever I am, but at least I kind of got out of that comfort zone, and instead of wallowing in the negative outcomes, and then
mhm,
judging myself and letting that fear of unpredictable times and anxiety of future dawning upon me, I think I kind of tried have been trying to convert it into something positive, something motivating for me.
mm. What's so important when you do that is don't let the but come in. So if you've
Mhm.
done something that you're proud of, um, I'll give you an example. I ran the Athens Classic Marathon. It was a big deal for me. I toured Europe for a month, and at the end of it, I ran the original marathon in Greece. And
Mhm.
what I found myself doing is I would say, I'm so proud I've run this original marathon." And immediately after that, I would say, "But my time was terrible." So I would take that achievement or that accomplishment away from myself. And so I
Mhm.
started paying attention to speaking to other people, and I would ask, "What is the thing that you're proud of? Tell me something that was great for you, that you enjoyed doing or you excelled at." And so
Mhm.
often, what I found was that people will say that, but then they very quickly say, "But," and then they take away from it. So, yeah, you gotta stop with the "but."
Mhm. Thanks. Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. I'll take this away as a personal, golden nugget for myself. Yeah, obviously. This can also take it away. I'll take
Yeah,
it.
just another thing, well, I mean, if we're gonna make it kind of personal, there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. The challenge here is if you say introvert and you start to think of it in a way where it has negative connotations. So because I am an introvert, I can't do this or I can't do that or I'm very bad at this. Words have power. And in fact, Bruce Lee said words have power. That's why it's spelling, like magic power, right? Spelling. So be a proud introvert. because there are things that introverts can do that extroverts can't. Extroverts can't be on their own. Like being on their own is the most scary thing for them. Introverts
Yeah.
don't spend a lot of time reflecting, really thinking through things. There's a lot of ways in which the introverted people excel. Not every single person who clients, for example, they don't all want to be sold by an extrovert. Many of them are going to be introverts themselves. So having someone who comes across more calm and that's absolutely not a bad thing at all.
I absolutely agree with you, Tracy. Ah, okay. So now, yeah, as evident it is, you blend psychology, neuroscience, and then business strategy in your coaching. I can definitely sense that. So how does understanding the brain's relationship with fear help business owners make smarter decisions or maybe take braver actions?
Mm. Wonderful question. So what happens with fear is that, as I said, in the brain, it triggers that fight or flight response. That is a response when we feel that we're in trouble. And the interesting thing about the brain is that it cannot tell the difference between a real fear and a perceived fear. So if we feel like s- social speaking, having to give a presentation, if we are afraid of that, the brain doesn't know that it's actually not a life or death thing and that it's actually not real. It's something that you think with that, and especially if you have a lot of fear going on, you can wire your brain for that to be your default. I mean, that's the worst thing that you can do because that takes away so much of your power. The other thing about it is it's about forging new paths in the brain. So as much as it can become quite normal and it can become quite debilitating, it is absolutely possible for you to reduce that fear response. I mean, I read quite some time ago that there was a high powered exec who all of a sudden just developed this anxiety, and this went on for months, and he went to go and see someone about it, and while they were speaking, she was asking him, okay, so explain your day, what has changed? And what they discovered was that what had started happening was the family would turn on the news before
Mhm.
he went to work, and this would like be playing in the background. And even
Yeah.
with that background news talking about, all of the, what the news is like, they, you blow everything up. Just because of that, not even in his awareness, this had an impact on him. So be mindful of your surroundings. You know, put yourself around with more positive people. Um, put yourself in supportive groups, but face it, right? You have to face it. You have to understand when it's going on for you, and then you need to take action, because if you don't take action, it's just going to stay there.
And this can be definitely a very, slippery slope here. And my next question is exactly, kind of aligned with what you just said, Tracy. Some people, they believe that you feel the fear and you do it anyway. But then others warn that pushing through fear without addressing the root cause, it can lead to bad decisions or, burnout. For example, as a CEO or as a high position executive, I may be putting out, extinguishing fires every day, any kind of negative situation which is coming up, let's say some kind of negative feedback on my brand, and then there's anxiety, then there's fear, but I'm just mindlessly putting out fires out there. So how do you balance courage with caution?
Do you know what? This is such an incredible question, because while fear has a base, and we've already discussed, it doesn't even need to be based in reality. just your perspective or what significance you attach to certain situations can color how you're going to approach it. I firmly believe it was Susan Jeffers who kind of coined that field of fear and do it anyway. And I think
Mhm.
this is a wonderful approach for people to start with, right? When it comes to just blindly kind of blindly pushing through it, the risk here is that you spend too much time trying to understand why you feel it. Now, I'm all about self-reflection. It's important that we understand what are the stories we're telling, what does that say about our belief systems and our value systems. But you also don't want to get stuck there, because as much as you can get insight, you need to be able to move beyond just digging in your brain hole or looking to your past and thinking, well, what happened there? You don't want to get stuck focusing on the problem of it. When it comes to fear, you don't always need to understand exactly why it happens. It's going to be a lot more helpful to say, well, you know what? You can do it at the same time. So you're going to learn to overcome that fear, and you can have a look at kind of how that all came about without having to feel the fear at the same time.
Absolutely. Hmm. That is really, really so important to address too. And then we hear a lot about, overcoming fear in entrepreneurship, but what about embracing fear as a part of the journey? I mean, do you think, Tracy, fear has a positive role always, or is it something we should always aim to reduce, or maybe proactively prevent that? Let's not even think about these kind of situations. Let's keep ourselves ready, proactively ready, so that we don't even encounter such kind of situations.
I think as long as we're going to be alive, as long as we're living, there's going to be fear. It's absolutely natural. And for entrepreneurs or even for people who want to grow and develop and have kind of the best, fullest, well-lived life, there's always going to be something coming up that can trigger that fear response. I think
Mm.
when it gets problematic when that fear prevents you from doing something. So when the fear becomes, it makes you not take risks, or it makes you not go out and try new things, or it stops you from doing something that might open up your world a little bit, that is when you need to feel the fear and do it anyway. So I think that developing a healthy relationship with fear is a very good thing. And one of the things that you can do there, if you're approaching fear from that attitude of curiosity, it is about saying, oh, that's so interesting. I am feeling fear. I'm feeling it in my stomach. I'm feeling it as a little bit of pressure on my chest. What is this trying to tell me? Right? And then playing that out.
Mm. And Tracy, since you have been into psychology, so in terms of psychology, I mean, I'm no expert, but in my so many conversations around mental health, trauma, does childhood, or maybe the culture we are brought in, or the environment we grow within, do all these factors also affect in some or the other way, especially for entrepreneurs?
What an absolutely gorgeous question. And the answer is without question, yes. So your lived experience kind of frames the way that you see the world. So if you have an upbringing where there's no stability, there's no security, especially physical security. So that can be emotional, physical, psychological, on any level. If there's no security, that can lead to a belief system that it's always going to be like that. So that's going to set you up to be scanning for risk and for threat kind of your adult life. And
Mm,
this is a very big. I think it's something that's becoming very prevalent now as well. In that,
mhm,
when you grow up and you kind of embed the learning, you embed the environment, and by the time you get to an adult, it's going to be very important for you to unpack, are there any beliefs that I am carrying that aren't serving me anymore, or are there values that I'm carrying because it was a defense mechanism from something that happened in the past, but now it's actually keeping me back. And this is something that people should do as a matter of course. You should be constantly checking in with yourself whether your thoughts, your behavior, your beliefs, your values are still in alignment. Because when they aren't in alignment, that's when you're going to start experiencing that cognitive dissonance. And that is just, it's a very uncomfortable situation when the reality that you're facing somehow conflicts with the way that you've constructed the world. And it's very unpleasant. I mean, the other big thing is about attachment. So you get a couple of different ways in which people can attach, and this happens from child to parents. That's where you first learn that attachment. If it's not parent, it's parental figure. And
mm,
really, it's so important to develop secure attachments, because if they're not secure, it can already disadvantage that child to know how to foster healthy relationships and how to be curious and open-minded about the world.
mm. Super, super, Tracy. So before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Okay, I have a link that they can follow for all listeners. I have a 30-minute chaos to clarity one-on-one session that I offer, and I can share the link with you. Otherwise, they can find me on LinkedIn, and I am absolutely happy to ask questions, connect, and support.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in there, Tracy, in the show notes. And this has been such a wonderful, insightful, I mean, personally speaking, such a learning conversation for me, Tracy. And thank you so much. I mean, I really loved how you reframe fear not as a barrier, but as an ally in our growth journey. And I'm very much confident, our listeners are they are walking away today with a deeper understanding on how to face their own monsters under the bed.
Wonderful. I'm glad that it could do some good.
So, to all the listeners out there, be sure to check out Tracy's mastermind resources and everything and connect with her on LinkedIn. I'll make sure to have everything in the show notes for you. And don't miss this opportunity because, it's never then late to start again. And until next time on BizBlend, this is your host Sana reminding you that every bold move starts with facing what scares you and choosing to grow anyway. With that, thank